Hey, so as much as we might want to think that we can do whatever it is we want to do in life solely on our own willpower and skill set and sheer awesomeness, as much as we might want to believe that's true, it's just not the case. Even in the stories and the movies that we love, every hero needs a team around them. And so today, I'm talking about the 3 types of relationships that we should cultivate, the 3 types of people that we need to have in our lives to make sure we are as equipped and supported as we can be to go do the things that we feel meant to do, that we want to do, sort of our next big adventure in life. We're going to need the right people around us to make sure that thing can happen. So if that sounds good to you, you're in the right place. Welcome to the first double-digit episode, episode 10 of Me and the Quest. Well, hey, what's going on? Glad to be back. My name is Ben Crossway. This is Me and the Quest. Sorry that we missed an episode last week, and I'm sorry that I didn't kind of provide any reason for it. It just didn't happen. So I'm glad to be back. Episode 10, double digits. Why is that hard to say? Double digits. But yeah, glad to be back. Episode 10, into the double digits now. Yeah, it's exciting. I actually heard recently a conversation about with like a podcasting expert about if podcasting has become oversaturated. And basically, even though there's over 1 million podcasts technically all throughout the entire world, if you have at least 10 episodes and are still posting actively, you're actually in the top 25% of podcasts. So we've already reached a little bit of a milestone, I guess. So that's pretty cool. Glad you're here. Today we're talking about the three types of people that you need to have on your team to make sure that you can, complete the mission that you're, trying to go on, want to go on. And actually, going back to episode 1, I had some questions about. I kind of summarized a lot of where season 1 has gone with a list of questions, and in that episode, I phrased it as like the one person to kind of fit each of these categories. And actually, since then, what I've kind of changed in how I'm thinking about it is to see these 3 roles that we're about to talk about as sort of archetypes, as these types of people that we should have. But one person can actually kind of help fill multiple roles, and I think each role should probably have it more than one person, right? So this is not one person needs to be this role, one person needs to be this role. This is actually just the 3 types of people and the 3 types of relationships, and sort of the 3 purposes that these relationships should serve in our lives. It doesn't have to literally be 3 people, 1 per each role. So I just wanted to explain that up front. It's also a good example of just what I want this project to be, which is me kind of figuring out this stuff as I go and kind of experimenting and tweaking where, I think when I filmed episode 1, I did think of it as like 1 person for each role. But I think it actually makes more sense to think of it as these 3 categories of relationships, essentially. Yeah, because no hero can do this, do their mission completely alone. I was thinking about maybe I think some of the places we see it, the closest thing to that is like some of these action movies. I was thinking about Jason Bourne because that's like one of my all-time favorite franchises, and Bourne's one of these people who kind of that whole story is about how alone he is, but ultimately, like throughout those movies, he does have people that kind of come in and help him figure things out and help him accomplish what he's trying to do. So even the most sort of lone wolf heroes still have people on their team. No hero can do it completely alone. So I really think there's something here for everyone, regardless of where you're at, regardless of what you're trying to do, and regardless of whether you feel like very alone right now and looking for any sort of support, or you think you've kind of got it all covered. I think there's still hopefully I can bring something to your attention to think about. So let's jump into it. The 3 types of people that we need to have on our team. All right, so the first type of person, and this is in no particular order really, but the first type of person is what I call the sidekick, right? So Samwise to Frodo, every Disney princess has a cute little sidekick of some sort, right? I mean, this is a person who you just know is on your side, who is there to support you however they can. This doesn't mean that this person is not a yes man or a yes woman, right? that's not someone we want on our team. Actually, we don't want, going back to that episode about shortcomings, right? We don't want someone who's just going to always go along and always say that we're the best and whatever we're, choosing to do is the right thing. Conversely, like the sidekick should be someone who is so wants the best for you that they are willing to confront you, that they're willing to push you, that they're willing to remind you of, what you really want or what your values are, maybe when you forget or when you get distracted or when you stray from those things. The sidekick, I often think this is probably going to be a friend, but maybe it's just someone that for some reason you're kind of in life with. And maybe they don't start out as a friend and they eventually become one. I think family and a romantic partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, those should definitely, I would hope that you can find sidekicks there in that group. I really hope that that you have those people in your life, and I really hope that they're closer to a sidekick than to a hindrance to you, in whatever you're kind of trying to do. But I also don't think that's enough. Like, I don't think just like my mom is my biggest fan, like she's my sidekick. That's good. Like, good for you. But hopefully, you can have more relationships than just that. Sidekicks don't have to have the same goal as you. I think most of the time they don't have the same goal as you. They don't have to have the same skill set as you. They don't have to be actually in the trenches doing the work with you. Though I think sometimes that's the case, but I think other times they're just the person that's there to talk to about it, who's there to support you in whatever way you need. Like for me, when I think about my sidekicks, I don't think any of them are, I do have friends that are musicians and I could, kind of put into that camp. But when I think about like my closest friends and in my family and, they're not specifically musicians and podcasters and, you know what I mean? Like they don't have, it's not that they literally have the same skill set and they're trying to do exactly the same things. I think, most of those people, I think probably all of them, I guess you could say we share a lot of the same core values. We have some big of same kind of overarching things we want to do in life. And so we have that in common, but this isn't about that we have to be kind of embarking on the same mission exactly. But I think that works too, right? I mean, if you're in a band and you're trying to make it big, like that's the same mission. If you're in a business together, then yeah, you kind of share the same mission. I don't think it has to be that though. So here's my actionable sort of next step for finding a sidekick. I think it's important not to hold it against anyone in our lives for not being enough of a sidekick if we haven't basically asked them to be, right? If we haven't invited them into that role. So I think it's important to, when we think about our friends or family members or even a more casual acquaintance, someone that we sort of know and think, maybe we could help each other, but haven't really pursued that relationship enough. Whoever it is, I think we have to go first and invite them into that story, invite them to be a part of our story. And so I think it's important to just be upfront and say, hey, look, this is something I want to do. This is why it matters to me. And this is how, you could help. I think a lot of times in friendships, this can be a very mutual thing too. It's like, hey, I know you're interested in doing this. Like, I'm interested in doing this. I know that this matters a lot to both of us. Like, let's be each other's sidekick in the sort of respective missions that we're going on, right? And I think most people, especially if they're people that are your friends that care about you, they're going to be super excited to play that role. So go first, invite people into your story, invite them to play that role of sidekick in your life. They're probably going to say yes. They're probably going to be super excited to be a part of it. And, no hero does it completely alone. So bring those people in who are going to offer the support, the encouragement, maybe the hard love at times that you need to get where you want to go. So sidekicks, that's the first type of person, the first role we need to fill on our team. The second person we need on our team is what I'm, at least for the time being, calling the counterbalance. We need a counterbalance. We need someone to fill in the gaps in our skill set. We need someone to offset our shortcomings. One of my favorite examples of this, and you see this a lot in like really high functioning creative, like visionary types, but Walt Disney and his brother Roy Disney are a great example where Walt, obviously, with so much vision and so much, so many dreams and so much he wanted to do, and just ridiculous vision that was, so grandiose. But he couldn't have done any of it without his brother Roy, who was the much more practical, the finances, the logistical side of things. If you read much about Walt Disney's life at all, Roy is there throughout that as a counterbalance. Walt couldn't have done it without Roy, and no one would know who Roy Disney was, because Disney wouldn't, that name wouldn't mean anything if it wasn't for Walt. So that dynamic is something you see, when you read about any sort of the big visionary, the leaders, these people like the Walt Disneys, the Steve Jobs, the Elon Musks, those types. There's always these counterbalances, even with these visionary people that we look to as like, wow, they're like superhuman. Walt Disney had Roy Disney. So some ideas for like pairings you might see in movies. You might see, like someone who's one character is very brave and like go get them, and the other person is very much more thoughtful and sort of calculating risks. If the person who's brave and just, I'm gonna go get them, doesn't have anyone to ever make them stop and think, like, let's calculate and see if this is smart or not, they're probably going to die at some point, right? The person who's more calculating and risk adverse and just thoughtful and all that, they're going to keep that person safe. But if they don't have someone to kind of charge ahead and have that has that bravery, that person might never do anything because they're so scared of dying. You might see one where someone is very analytical and sort of cold, and the other person is very warm and emotional, but very up and down, and like that can be a good team for sure. In one job in particular I worked, there was one person, and some of the people that worked for this person as well, but especially this one person that was that sort of visionary type, very into aesthetics, very into how a space would make you feel and how it was unique and how it was beautiful. But there was also another team of people that, which I actually worked on, that was much more about the logistics and does this work, and is there, it's a beautiful bathroom, but is there toilet paper in it? The logistics, and both had to come together. And it was funny because I worked on that logistical team, but actually innately I'm way more of the other sort of like, it's beautiful and maybe nothing works, but it's beautiful, it makes me feel good. Like, you need to have both, because strictly logistical, you end up with fluorescent lighting and ceiling tiles, and but at least there's toilet paper in the bathroom, and the visionary aesthetic only side of things, it might be beautiful, but it doesn't work, and the lights don't come on, and the toilet paper's gone. So you need both. When I think about my closest relationship in my life, my wife, my marriage, obviously, like, some of that is in the sidekick category, where she is my sidekick and I am her sidekick, right? But actually, like, I think we have a really good counterbalance thing going on too. I've talked a lot already in these first 9.5 episodes now I've talked a lot about one of my biggest superpowers is also one of my shortcomings, which is my sort of emotional rawness. You can use the word depth if you want, because to me depth is like a way of saying, like, the mountains and the valleys, like, both are pretty, there's the peaks and valleys are pretty extreme, right? I'm pretty up and down. I heard Pete Holmes, who I listen to all the time, say this recently, and I very much related, but these swings between like infinite potential and like nothing means anything. That's me, right? These big up and downs. And Aaron is just the most steady human being you're ever going to be around. Just very peaceful, very steady, very just calm strength. And that, is one, it's an anchor for me. And this isn't coming as news to her. This is something I've told her from early on when I met her. And I think she would say too that, like, sometimes my drive, my passion, my grandiose ideas, that pushes her sometimes too. So we're a good a counterbalance to each other. And I think, this isn't an episode about finding a romantic partner, but I think something about these two where like you're sidekicks, but you're also counterbalance. Like to me, that if all you are is counterbalance, that probably means you're just like opposites, but maybe not the good kind of opposites attract. Like you're just opposites. But that idea of like we are each other's sidekicks, but we also balance each other out a lot. If you can find that happy medium, I think that might be a good sign. It has been in my experience, at least. All right, so the third and final role to fill is the role of mentor. This is the Gandalf. This is the Yoda. This is Rafiki. This is, oftentimes too, like a lot of times in movies, the mentor is not someone like Gandalf is this mostly sort of perfect character, and oftentimes too, like the mentor or the guide, as it's often called, and like to use the language from Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, or like in storytelling, they call this the idea of meeting the guide. Like the hero has to go, and at some point they meet the guide that teaches them the ways of whatever they're trying to do, right? A lot of times the guide is flawed too. Maybe they're jaded, maybe they've been hurt, maybe they have some other sort of flaw, but in some way they're able to mentor the hero and get the hero to the place they need to be. So I kind of think of mentors as in two very broad categories, which is like real life mentors and also like mentors from afar. I am really good at mentors from afar because I'm like an information and like learning and self-improvement nerd. Like I love podcasts, I love books. I'll just sit and listen to like lectures on YouTube about somewhat, obscure topics. I think maybe if I were to list out like my 10 greatest teachers in my life, probably, 8 of them I've never met in life, right? These are people who their books, their speaking, whatever has, greatly changed my life. And that's perfectly valid. But I do think that's not quite enough. And when I think about that category of in-person mentors, people who are actually in my life, I kind of break that down into two groups too. There's the sort of just general life mentors, like people I want to be like, people that, I want to have a marriage like them. I want to be wise like they are. I want to, just learn from their wisdom. And it's good to have people like that in your life for sure, people you can look up to in a more general way. And then there's like specific to what I'm pursuing mentors, people who are, like in my case, it could be someone who has made a living as a musician and I'm interested. How do you do that? Maybe a business person I'm interested in. Maybe someone who communicates for a living. I'd be interested to learn, what makes a good communicator, like to kind of get niche. And this is actually something I want to work on. Like it's actually a goal kind of for this year is to get better about intentionally like fostering some of those relationships. I don't feel like I pick people's brains enough, like people that I want to kind of learn from or that have something that they've accomplished that I would like to, kind of learn from their skill set, learn from their experience. And again, it just takes some intentionality, right? I think most people are willing to talk. Most people are willing to, you don't have to be best friends. They're willing to have a coffee. They're willing to answer your email. And so I definitely like, this is something I need to be better about. Again, because I like to read books and I like to do that stuff, but there's something about when it's a person that can respond to your particular situation and answer your particular questions. When I have experienced that, it's super helpful, and it's something I want to get better about. I sort of ranted last episode, I guess, two weeks ago, about like this idea that like if you don't know how to do something, like there's not too many excuses, like with all the access to information that we have. And so as far as this sort of mentor from afar, like what excuse do you have, right? Find some mentors from afar. And I do like the idea that like you would pick a person or two to really just dive into their work. I think there's something helpful about that, rather than just skim like 20 different thinkers, to have a couple that you really relate to. You either, want to pursue what they're interested in, or you just like their style or whatever. Like just go deep, buy all their books or watch all their YouTube videos or binge their podcast. what I found that's really cool about that world is oftentimes, especially if you pay attention, even just a little bit, like most of my favorite thinkers I found through another favorite thinker, right? So someone like Donald Miller turned me on to Viktor Frankl, and like those two people are I would say two of my absolute biggest influences. Like a more spiritual writer like Rob Bell has introduced me to so many other thinkers. So like most of the time you just kind of pay attention to like, who is this person that I like who are they quoting, or who are they citing in the footnotes or whatever, right? Like most of the time you can kind of just start with one and branch off and just kind of pay attention. And one mentor can often lead to another, That's always a rabbit trail I enjoy going down. As far as an action step for this one, I definitely don't feel super comfortable telling you what to do, because this is something so I'll just, share my action step, which I want to just be more intentional in the coming months and, over this next year about like reaching out to people and people that, I don't know that well. I have a couple people that I plan to email in the coming weeks, people that are email or like direct messages on Instagram, because I've followed them for years. They don't live that far away from me. Like we could easily meet in the middle and get a coffee, but like, it's going to take that cold reach out. But I'm guessing they'll say, sure, I'll grab a coffee with you and talk about X, Y, and Z. Like I want to be better about, being proactive in pursuing some, intentional mentee. I just want to be intentional about pursuing some of those relationships, because as much as a book on a podcast, and I'm a proponent of all that, I know from experience, though not as much as I would like, but from experience, when you sit across the table from someone, or you can have some long email back and forth or whatever, and it's about your particular situation, and you can ask specific questions and tap into that person's specific experience, you can just learn so much more quickly that way. I think pursuing and submitting yourself to a mentor does take a certain amount of humility, and I get that might not be easy for everyone, but I think it's worth it. We tend to think of like the mentor as someone who's ahead of us in every area of life, sort of that like perfect Gandalf figure who's just like sort of godlike, and we're just a lowly person who doesn't know anything. And occasionally you do meet those people who are just older and wiser and just seem to have it all figured out. But I think most of the time, like there are people who might have some real expertise in one area of life, and maybe in the other area of life I actually am healthier or further ahead or whatever. It doesn't disqualify them. Like just ask them about that. Or if it's hard to kind of seek advice, like it doesn't mean that you have to take it all either, right? I mean, you can just pick someone's brain and you kind of just take or leave, whatever you need to. But I think there's too much to gain, and there's really not that much risk in reaching out to some people and trying to establish some mentoring relationships. And so like for me, it's a big goal for the year. And if I reach out to a certain number of people and only a percentage of those people have one meeting, and then out of that percentage, only a couple of those I ever meet with again, like it's still worth the time it takes to write, 10 emails, right? It's worth that effort. It's low risk, high reward. So here's to a year of finding a bunch of good mentors. So there you have it. Those are the three types of people: a sidekick, a counterbalance, and a mentor. And again, I really think that I want to view these as categories, and that one person can actually kind of slip into multiple roles. And I definitely think there should be more than one person in each role, probably. So just remember that, yes, you're awesome. Yes, you can do big things, and you're extremely capable, but you also need other people. None of us can do this on our own as much as we might like to think we can. So go find a good team, build a good team around you. And then also too, like, I want to be a part of your team. So make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure that you reach out and let me know if you have questions or things you'd like me to talk about. If you have guests you think would be a cool interview, make sure you send them my way, because I'm definitely starting to think about that for looking toward season 2. So I want to play the sidekick in your life, or maybe even the mentor at times. So make sure you engage, subscribe to the podcast, make sure you're listening to episodes. But more importantly, let me know what you think. Talk to me about it. Comment on YouTube, comment on Instagram. Feel free to reach out with any thoughts. All right, sorry again for missing last week, but we'll be back the next few Wednesdays, and then we'll talk about what sort of the next season of Me and the Quest is going to look like through the spring and summer. We'll talk about that more soon. But until then, have a good week. We'll see you next Wednesday. Peace.